For me, there are probably three key things to bear in mind when looking at the AI Act from a drug and device regulatory perspective. Firstly, in terms of the way it's structured, the AI Act borrows a lot from EU product safety legislation in the way that it uses a risk-based approach to set tiers levels of requirements. It adopts terms like placing on the market and putting onto surface, and assigns different responsibilities to different actors across the AI value chain, with roles like provider, deployer, importer, and distributor. That'll all be quite familiar to stakeholders working in the medical device sector, given the similarities to the MDR and the IVDR, but maybe less so to those working with medicinal products, which have a regulatory framework based on older, non-harmonized EU laws. Secondly, although it borrows from sector-specific, what are called vertical product safety frameworks, the AI Act itself is not sector-specific, and it's intended to regulate AI technology horizontally. That is, regardless of the sector that it's used in. What that means is that in any given sector, you need to figure out where that AI Act intersection is between the vertical sector-specific frameworks that apply and this new horizontal AI-specific regime that now cuts across them. And that's something that can be quite challenging in sectors that are already highly regulated along that vertical axis, like pharma and medical devices. Another important point to note, and again going back to the risk-based approach, is that the majority of prescriptive requirements built into the AI Act are addressed to these high-risk AI systems. So an important job in terms of determining your AI compliance burden is going to be figuring out whether you are using or building high-risk AI systems as part of your business. At the product level, I think the key thing to watch out for here links to the risk of your product being classified as a high-risk AI system. And when it comes to medical devices, the AI Act effectively imports the legal tests and classification rules from the MDR and the IVDR as part of its own classification rules. What that means is that AI systems that are safety components of or are themselves regulated as medical devices or IVDs that need a notified body for conformity assessment will now have to comply with MDR or IVDR requirements, as well as high-risk system requirements under the AI Act. That can be a particular issue for software medical devices, for instance, given that under existing MDR rules, they require a notified body for conformity assessment almost by default. And that tends to be where we see a lot of borderline issues with products potentially triggering the definition of a medical device under the MDR, as well as the definition of an AI system under the AI Act. So the high-risk system scoping exercise for medicinal products isn't perhaps as neat as it is for medical devices, where the MDR and the IVDR are specifically referred to as part of an annex in the AI Act. That being said, products such as software devices and software IVDs are forming an ever more important part of the medicinal product lifecycle. So those kinds of devices and IVDs that may now also be regulated under the AI Act as high-risk AI systems, and that can sometimes be used to develop or deliver medicinal products, need to be kept in mind by pharma stakeholders as well. And that's because use of those devices and IVDs as part of the medicinal product lifecycle can end up creating a need to address AI Act requirements linked to a medicinal product, albeit indirectly. Medicinal products are also an area where classification as a high-risk system may arise with reference to a list of high-risk activities contained in the AI Act. And there's a question at the moment around the extent to which some high-risk activities on that list might apply in a life sciences context. This includes biometric categorization or the evaluation of eligibility to access essential healthcare services. A practical first step would be to provide training across your business on how to apply the AI Act in practice and what the various requirements are. And that would be as a means of really encouraging everyone in your organization to think about how the AI Act may be relevant to projects they're working on, so that any previous unknown issues can be surfaced and addressed as needed. Next, you can carry out a form of AI gap analysis, ideally using a cross-departmental working group within the business. And this group would have the job of identifying what AI systems and models the business is developing and using, and where the business sits in the AI value chain with respect to those systems and models. Once you've identified those systems and models within scope, you can then start looking at risk classification, what types of requirements flow from that, and how much time you have to build in compliance with those requirements. Meanwhile, you should also be keeping an eye out for guidance to be issued by the European Commission, as well as sector-specific bodies like the EMA, the MDCG, and representative bodies like Team NB. And another important thing to track are the development of various technical standards applicable to things like AI risk management and development practices, particularly harmonized standards for the AI Act, which are currently under development.